Okay, we're up and running. How you doing, man?
I'm okay. I got these two phrases stuck in my head lately. One of them is from that movie Training Day with Denzel Washington. You ever see that movie?
Oh yeah, of course, it's awesome.
Right when what?
I was gonna say I still can't pronounce that director's last name right. It's what Anton Fuqua. Fuqua. I have no idea how to say his name, but yeah, no, that
Me
guy's
neither.
awesome. Anyway,
Towards the end, after he gets his money taken away and gets shot in the ass, and he gets in the car and lights up a cool, and he goes, "What a motherfucking day!" And I keep having that phrase over and over again. And the other phrase I have is what Elon Musk said about running a startup. It's like what is it, eating glass while staring into the abyss of death. And it's definitely not that hard because I'm not like starting Tesla, but doing the business in the
yeah,
current climate, it's like every turn I take feels like a brick wall. The rules changed. Everything's different. Things are just changing so fast. And it's like, all right, so I can get that together in 4 months. And then 4 months later, the rules are changed again. And it's been a very interesting time, but I want so badly to keep up with this stuff because I feel like this stuff is so important. And I'm juggling a lot of balls, but I really do appreciate your patience with me and
I think you're doing
us
great,
being able
man.
to start a bit late. Thank you. I appreciate it. But yeah, I'm doing good. I'm a little stressed, but it's just the way it is with a business. But I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Juggling this, all of a sudden I went from having no one wanting to come on here to having quite a few folks want to come on here. So I'm pretty happy about that, and to offer up a lot of diversity to the show. So I'm happy, and maybe thinking about kind of leaning into this more from an interviewer standpoint than just kind
Mm.
of like, hey, I've got my points and I want to yell and scream them back at you and whatever, and you're wrong and wagging my finger. I don't want to do any of that. I think I'm more interested in hearing people's sides out, kind of like really evaluating exactly what the point of what I'm doing on this thing is. So,
And let the
yeah,
audience figure it out for themselves. I think that's
yeah,
Joe Rogan's secret to success, really.
yeah. So, okay, so we were wanting to talk a little bit about Ukraine today, and I wanted to get your clarification on the matter of exactly what your position is concerning it. More specifically, was your position that this is America's fault and that Russia uh, is kind of justified in their behaviors, considered of economic and diplomatic pressures from the United States? Is it that kind of thing, or do you see this? Where do you stand? I'm not going to
It's
put words in your
complicated
mouth.
and convoluted. I don't want to. I'm not a Putin apologist. I don't like Putin. I think he's brilliant. I think he's powerful. I think he's to be respected in the same way that the United States as a whole should be respected. Not Biden, but the United
Yeah.
States. Um, I think if you recall that thing I said on a previous podcast and earlier today, it's like you put a honey badger in a cage and you poke it with a stick, and then you let it out and it attacks you. And you say, I'm a badger apologist when I say I told you that would happen. I think that's the case we're in. But also, I think it's like if if I uh, if I paid somebody to beat you up, and then I kept paying them every day to keep beating you up, and then I paid other people to beat you up, I never threw a punch.
Hmm.
And those people are responsible for what they did, those people that hit you. But I'm still very responsible for my part. And the United States is so powerful. I don't think we realize it in some circumstances, but in others, we don't realize how incredibly powerful the United States is and how incredibly complicated geopolitics is. We didn't go to war in World War II just to beat up Hitler because Hitler was a bad guy. If it was, it would have been the Great War against Hitler or something. It wouldn't have been World War II.
Hmm.
It was so complicated, and there were so many reasons and so many things that had to happen to cause the war, and there was just so much going on that had a lot more to do with a lot more issues than just Hitler. And I'm I'm in a position where I think I I remember when we went to war with Iraq and I felt so alone. I was in this office and they were talking about it in the sales meeting, and everybody was like, thank God we've got a strong leader. And even like lifelong Democrats were like, oh, I'm glad it's Bush and not that pansy, you know, I forget his name. What was his name? The Inconvenient Truth guy.
Oh, Al Gore.
Um,
Al
yeah,
Gore.
thank God it's not Al Gore because we need a strong leader right now. And I remember feeling completely alone. Like, I don't know what's going on. I don't have alternative media access, but like, this feels like a crock of shit. Anytime we start bombing the hell out of innocent people, it feels like, there's something else going on. And then we look back and we're like, oh shit, there was a lot of stuff we didn't know. And we're just repeating the same dumb fucking mistakes where
Mhm.
people are like, I care, like my brother, my younger brother. I was talking to him about it, and he's like, I care about the people of Ukraine. And he yelled at me, and he was like so emphatic. And I'm like, okay, what about people in Afghanistan? What about all of the wars that we've supported, proxy wars that we funded that have gotten so many people killed? Well, what about what's going on in North Korea? Like, why do we need so badly right now to care about Ukraine? Because they want us to care about Ukraine, and not Ukraine. They want us to care about 60% of the Ukrainians.
Mhm.
Not the other 40% with Russian heritage. So I'm not saying that Putin is wrong and we're right, or that Putin is right and we're wrong. I'm saying stop trusting any freaking government and stop trusting any reason to go to war unless there are boots on the ground in our country, unless we are being invaded. Freaking look at history. And so I come across as somebody who seems to be on Russia's side just by the mere fact that everybody else is just reporting from the other side. Does that make sense?
No, it totally does. And I think maybe like, do you feel like people are kind of like getting at you about that? That they're saying like, oh, you just sound like a Russian apologist. You brought that up a little bit earlier. Um,
Yeah, I've gotten it a couple of times,
mhm.
mostly jokingly from friends. That like they don't literally mean it because they know me well, but I know that if we had a big YouTube channel, I would get that a lot.
Right. Okay. So I think it's how we're talking about things specifically. So, and I'm going to bring him up because he's going to be a part of the stream. But like, let's take Grim for example. Okay. And
Grim.
yeah, love this guy. Right. So what he will do with me is he'll send me, personally, he'll send me a lot of like TikToks or I don't know, whatever little clips from YouTube, things like that, concerning like how incompetent and how stupid sounding and whatever that Biden is. Okay. And he'll do this to me and he'll be like, oh, you got to admit these guys are like two sides of the same coin. They're idiots. They're both, this kind of thing. But the predominant message that he's sending me is how much Biden is an idiot, and he never anything sent it or linked or discussed or talked about is exactly how Trump is an idiot or Trump was a complete fucking moron. And so, and I find that you kind of do the same thing, where it's like, look, I get that you want to be able to criticize your own side and that you should criticize your own side and don't let anyone like don't simp for any party just because you find like a voting allegiance to it. Like I get that, but when it seems like it's almost like you're infiltrating, you know it's like, yeah, no, I hate Trump, but like just like I'm gonna put a lot of attention and a lot of focus onto how what a motherfucker Biden is, but I do hate Trump, so don't forget that part. But let's just talk about how what a piece of shit and how incompetent and that he stutters and all this kind of shit. So in correlation to like how you speak about the Russia and Ukraine thing, you'll do the exact. It seems like you do the exact same thing where you're like, yeah, no, I'm totally anti-war, but America, you got to really pay attention to the bullshit that America's doing. You really got to look at like, okay, what's their involvement? How are they to blame for this? Like all those kinds of things. And then, but like completely dismissing the fact that like, well, Russia is a fucking oligarchy. They're almost an autocratic nation. Have violated agreements hand over fist, are still annexing countries, like in Crimea to be precise. Have like defaulted on agreements, political, all that stuff, and they're doing it just crappy. And well, straight up, they're invading a country as we speak right now. America's not doing that, so it's like you almost like
That's not.
you got to draw attention to that as well, and strike the balance between the two,
I
lest you
don't
become
need to.
well.
I don't need to because everybody else is. I. It, it's wishy-washy
Hmm.
to come on and fight for the other side, for lack of a better word. I'm not fighting for Russia, but fighting for not doing what we're doing. It's wishy-washy to keep excusing what we're doing and try to balance things out
Hmm.
constantly. Uh,
Do you
let me
find that?
touch on a.
Do you find that that's an excuse though? You like what you
Let
just
me,
said. Like I don't want to excuse what America's doing. Do you think that that's what I'm doing? That I'm excusing it by like putting a
yes,
focus and a highlight on Russia's involvement in this is by
let me
proxy an
explain that.
excuse?
I feel like it does excuse me, and let me explain why.
Okay.
First of all, Trump is not current, so I want to address that first. I was very
Well,
hard on
wait.
Trump.
I gotta just immediately call bullshit on that one. Trump is very current still. He may not be the current like commander in chief, but he is still very, very relevant. I mean, he is
I
basically
think
in
he
two
is as
years.
relevant as the news tries to make him, but nobody cares. I don't think anybody except people addicted to the mainstream and the sub-mainstream media give a shit. I don't think he's current. I don't think he matters right now.
Okay.
And I think he's just used as him and Russiagate were just a smoke screen on a regular basis. He didn't take us into any new wars. He did some stuff I didn't like. I don't like that he bombed Syria. I don't believe Syria gassed its people, and I don't think he should have bombed them. But I did not like Trump, and I think you remember on Facebook, I was constantly criticizing Trump.
Mhm.
I'm pointing to the people in power, and then when it's like, well, Trump was just as bad. I don't give a fuck if Trump was worse. Right now, Biden is the fucking problem.
Okay.
Stop pointing to Trump. And when Trump was in office, was like, yeah, but Obama, da da da, it was enlightening
Mhm.
sometimes, like, oh shit, I didn't know Obama did that, and sometimes I appreciated it, but I'm not trying to talk about Obama. He's
Mhm.
out, Trump is in, and if
Mhm.
Obama does something currently, we'll talk about Trump with his stupid social media site. We'll talk about that, but we're not going to talk about Trump when it comes to Ukraine unless we're talking about what he did. And he did give Ukrainians a massive amount of weapons, a huge ability to,
Mhm.
instigate this conflict, or increase this conflict.
Yeah.
He's got some blame here, but that's about all I can say on Trump regarding Ukraine. And so I think that a large push of like, look at how stupid Biden is because Biden is dumb in all the ways Trump is dumb.
Well,
Biden is.
real quick though, I mean, it can be said, and a lot of people speculate that like if Trump had won his second term, then the basically like the Trump would have paved the way for Putin to do this, to annex Ukraine or to go in through like political means. He would have paved the way, and he would have like tried. Like it's speculated that Trump would have removed obstacles for Putin to whatever degree that he would have been able to do that, but that he would have tried his damnedest to do that, to try and rally the nation and the might of the United States, like influence upon NATO, that he would have paved the way. Now, given that he lost the election, Putin just being Putin and probably realizing that like he is on a timeline, just said fuck it, let's go ahead and do it, and let's go ahead and invade, put boots on the ground. And that's why I keep bringing up Trump's involvement in it. Especially when that whole thing with Colonel Lindman and the quid pro quo, there was all that kind of crap dealing with Ukraine for information about this stuff, like things that Russia wanted. Trump seemed to be like very allied to Putin in a lot of regards, and now that he's out of office, now we've got a complete change of heart from Putin and how he wants to go about doing things. Maybe viewed at because Biden might be viewed as weak or incompetent or doesn't have the stomach for war, especially like soon after pulling out of Afghanistan. So I mean, I think there is some relevance there of Trump's involvement and still how he is very much on the scene. And still very much viewed as the leader of the Republican Party right now. So that's why I say that. Like, I don't think it's like Trump's gone and he's just like in the rear view mirror. I think he still has a lot of connections and still has a lot of influence with as in media terms, how the party is aligned, how like the marching orders, the directions that they take. So um, I don't know. What do you think?
Trump can be relevant to current events at times. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think he's overall relevant in the way that when you talked about Grimm sending you, is it Grimm or Graham? I keep forgetting.
Grimm, like Grimm's fairy tales.
Okay, Grimm
Yeah.
sends you Biden, like, look at how stupid Biden is. I think there's two reasons for that. Number one is we're not talking about Trump right now when we do that kind of thing because
Mm-hmm.
Biden's the one in power, point to the people in power. And number two, it's a relative thing that how can you spend so much time talking about how stupid Trump is in all these ways and then excuse all of this same exact shit from Biden because he speaks more your language, he's more in your tribe? What I think he and I want everybody to admit is Biden is just as fucked up as Trump in all of the ways Trump was fucked up. And the evidence of that is, look at where we're headed. And Biden was like, at least I'm not going to get into a war with Russia and Ukraine. And da, da, da. He ran on partly that. And look at where we're going. And you can't sit there and say, yeah, well, if Trump was still in office, we got to look at the facts. Let's not speculate right now. And the facts are.
A simple fact of the matter, though, is that there wasn't an autocrat or a dictator that Trump wasn't friendly with. He was friendly with all of them. And
I do not mind Trump getting along with world leaders. I don't like some of the world leaders he disrespected. I don't like the fact that he disrespected some world leaders, but I do not mind the fact that Trump got along with world leaders. I don't like him.
He's disrespected like key allies of ours. He disrespected France. He disrespected Germany, Canada, all these people. And then he like cozied up with Kim Jong-un and then with Putin and any other dictator he could. God, I can never say the guy.
But he sanctioned Russia, he sanctioned China, and he loaded up Ukraine with weapons, and he was not a friend to Russia. I don't mind that he got along with dictators. I don't like that he seemed to just like dictators more than anybody else. He obviously wants to be a strong man, but I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, he cozied up with Russia. He didn't help Russia at all. He didn't do anything Putin wanted him to do. He wasn't good for Putin. I would have been better for Putin than he would have been. I would have been better than him or Biden would have been if I were the leader. And I don't think I would have been disrespecting our allies in the way he was, but he had some relevant points in why he was doing some of the things he was doing that is dismissed by the left media. Like, the money we do pay to NATO, the fact that NATO should be abolished. I think he's right on those issues, and it comes across and gets twisted in certain ways. And I haven't done enough Trump research to know all the bullshit, but I do know
what. Put a pin in that real quick, by the way, about why NATO should be abolished. Let's remember to go back to that. I want to talk about that real quick. I want to talk about that in the future, but go ahead and continue what you're saying, though, just as a mental note.
Mostly, just the fact of the matter is, Biden is doing so much of the stuff that we were worried Trump was going to do. He says stuff so inarticulately that he makes Trump look smart. At least Trump is all there. Trump's an idiot in a lot of ways and a genius in some, like getting the media. But Biden's not all there. Biden's not nearly as cognitively, there as Trump was. And they're both, a bit shot out, too old and unhealthy. But Biden's far worse. I think it's very relevant for Grim to be Grim to be I'm so dyslexic. Yeah. For Grim to be saying, look at how much of an idiot he is compared to Trump. But you had 5 other issues you brought up. And the other thing is, I hate when the left disses the right. I hate when the right disses the left, because now that I feel like I've had my feet in both tribes, I see that one side always gets it wrong. I don't like it when Jimmy Dore talks about how stupid a Republican is. I don't like it when and I'm so bad with names, I have trouble remembering the conservative ones, but like when some of the people on Tim Pool's show will sit there and talk about, well, liberals are da-da-da. And I feel like they get it wrong. They both talk about the extreme, like, well, liberals just want to take away all of our guns no matter what. And then you have the left saying conservatives just want everybody to have a gun no matter what. And you're talking about the most extremes on both sides and saying that's the whole camp, because they're both inadvertently, even if they never watch shit like CNN, they're both getting the narrative.
Well, I think they're colloquially speaking to the loudest voice that's being presented right now, and I think they're speaking
the voice that is being amplified by the media, right, because that causes the most fear, creates the most clicks. Yes, not the loudest voice.
It's not even just the media, man. It's the shit that they even put out on their own media sources, even in social media. They put it out there too.
That doesn't go anywhere unless the media amplifies it. When the media amplifies it, I can't go on Facebook, start a new page without working 5, 6, 7 years and have that be relevant at all unless the media picks it up and amplifies it. The media amplifies the fighting. The media amplifies the
they should provide the material, but the constituents are pretty damn reliable as like picking up the flag and running with it. I mean, you got to admit, I mean, they do that constantly, left and right.
Sure, but give me the flag and I'm gonna run with it. Give you the flag and I hope you run with it if you
Yeah.
got good ideas,
That's what I'm
like
saying. It's like
anybody
it's not.
would.
It's just not a media
But
push,
the
but I
more
mean,
provocative it is,
yeah.
the more it's going to get out there. I agree with that, but I think
Mhm.
a lot of that is a fault of the media more so than I don't think it's the people upvoting on Reddit the wrong stuff.
Right.
I find that the people generally pick right while CNN and Fox News shoves the bullshit down our
Yeah.
throats.
Well,
But
they provide us the fight. They're like, hey, check out this fight. This is what's happening now, and then everyone goes and let's weigh in on it and see what happens. And
but on that
you
note,
know,
I don't know Russia very well.
mm-hmm,
I know it from the outside. I know it from Western history.
mm-hmm,
I don't know enough to honestly say, like, that's why I'm saying I don't know what Putin could or should be doing right now. I
right.
know morally he shouldn't be killing anybody. Maybe he's killing less people in the long run with what he's doing. I doubt it. I have no idea, though. I don't have a judgment in it.
Okay.
But
Well,
I'm an American, and I can look and see what we're doing with much more, I think, objectivity.
okay. Well, cool. Let's examine that real quick. So you've got a lot of we've talked about that Putin wants a buffer state or a line of like a buffer zone between him and NATO. Why do you think it is that all these all the countries within this buffer zone seem very very intent upon joining NATO and not aligning with Russia? Why do you think that is?
Crimea
Mm-hmm.
was annexed because we put in the Ukraine current government. In 2014, we backed a coup that overthrew Ukraine's Russian friendly government.
Mm-hmm.
We put them in there. There's video, there's audio recording of us agreeing to do this. And that's when he took Crimea. The reason he took Crimea was because there are Russians in there of Russian heritage that were lives were at risk. And I don't like there's when I get into stuff that I don't know, and I'm speculating based on what some of my favorite journalists are saying, but I haven't dived in enough. But it's like, okay, if you're going to put this, this government in the Ukraine, then we're going to annex Crimea. That makes sense to me, but I know there's more to it than that. And then now what we have happened, we got a waterway issue that I don't understand enough about to dive into. We've got the fact that we shut down the second pipeline. And so now he needs to use the Ukrainian system. Like he's got to sell the oil and gas through Ukraine and pay the transit fees or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ukrainian Nazi party, it's not a party yet, but the Ukrainian Nazi movement is rapidly gaining steam and rapidly gaining massive amounts of weapons. And there are biological weapons in some of these labs in Ukraine. Please, for God's sakes, not just you, Sean, but everybody, picture this happening in Mexico. Picture China having made the moves in Mexico that we've made in the Ukraine. Imagine that they put in a government that's more friendly to China. We had a Mexican-friendly government that was working with us with the drug wars to an extent and whatever. And then they put in a China-friendly, maybe it was just a nudge. Maybe it was just a recommendation and a slight push as opposed to an absolute coup.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. But now we've got a China-friendly government. We lose our, second biggest trading partner, I think it is, or biggest trading partner.
Mm-hmm.
And then there seemed to be an infiltration of Nazis or Taliban or Al-Qaeda, bubbling up in Mexico. What the fuck do you think we would do? I know what we would do. Now add in the pipelines. Add in they take over the Gulf and there's no oil to be gotten there or whatever. I mean, it's so clear that this is a power grab this is a combination of an empire that's on the decline and a move for less homogeneity, if I'm saying that right, and more I keep forgetting the words, but plurality of governments in the world. Yeah, I think that's what it's like. You go from one country's in charge to multiple countries have to kind of balance their
Yeah.
power. Um,
Homogeny, I think is the word that you're looking for.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
well, I wish I
Oh,
was better with words.
hegemonic. Fucking yeah, we're idiots.
You, you
Okay.
you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about, though,
No,
and
I
I
get you.
think our audience does too.
Hmm.
Our five listeners.
Yeah. Right.
But the
I'm disappointed in all of you, by the way. I have 0 viewers right now, and you know
oh,
who I'm talking about. Not towards you, but to the listeners in the future about this. Yeah, like I think there comes to kind of a special difference between something that's going on within Europe when it comes to nuclear powers and to established markets, and when you've got you've got this Russia, formerly of the Soviet Union, the areas that they had, people that wanted out from underneath like Stalinistic tactics and the Stalinistic like decrees, even with like Gorbachev and Yeltsin, there was that they may have like loosened a lot of that kind of crap, but they still kind of wanted to be out from underneath it. And these people of these territories or Soviet territories that are now sovereign nations, they should be allowed to proceed forward as they want to be. And just because like it's basically like we have to draw a line somewhere of like, okay, we need to call it what it is and give credit to where credit's deserved on that, but at the same time not be promoting appeasement of a government, of an oligarchy who is hell bent on imperialism and like
he wanted to join
restructuring the
NATO.
Soviet bloc. You know.
He asked about joining NATO. We
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't let him. NATO was created to push back on Russia and everything communist. NATO was created as the war machine to protect everybody against Russia,
Mm-hmm.
i.e., it was created to be against Russia. We promised it wouldn't expand. We've got all
Do
these
you say it's
rules.
against them, or do you think it's a defensive measure? See that what I'm reading
Oh
about
my
NATO is
God,
it
who's
seems
being naive? Jesus
I'm not
Christ.
being naive. I'm asking a legit question, and what I'm coming up with is it looks to be more and more about a defensive position rather than an offensive one. That's
Doesn't
just
it always look that way before we go to war?
no. I'm talking about the materials. I'm not talking about like the what's coming out from the State Department about what they're saying about the benefits of NATO. It's just kind of what I'm looking at and what they're actually involved with and what's happening. It seems like more of a defensive, like a allegiance or ally than it is to be like, okay, now we're going to be a united front and start like pushing into other and expanding into other
Defense of our
territories.
interests.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to defend our interests, and our interest is to continue to rapidly grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's capitalism. We have to sell more natural gas. We need to ship it over there the most expensive way possible. We need to make more and more money.
Mm-hmm.
We want to keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
We want to keep expanding. That, as you know, as a
Yeah,
socialist,
yeah,
that's capitalism.
totally. I get that, but the thing is like right now you've got Ukraine being invaded by Russia, who is not, and Ukraine is not a part of
Because
NATO.
we cooed the leadership in 2014, because we shut down the second pipeline, because we keep breaking our promises with NATO, etc. So to sit there and say, that's like saying, okay, we've done everything we can to start a fight with a bully, and now we need to be defensive. Okay,
No,
but
no, no. That's okay. That we're speaking past each other. What I'm saying is like, okay, if we wanted to use it as invasionary tactics or to have NATO as a force of aggression, then why would we like even hem and haw over bringing Ukraine in and simply like, yeah, let's take them, but we keep rejecting them out. We keep rejecting Russia out. If the whole idea is to expand the market, then why wouldn't we take everyone in there that we possibly can? It would behoove us to have Russia in there, especially in relation to China. You know what I'm saying? So like right now we've got a
okay, I
country,
see what you're saying.
so like right now we're
We
like,
need a
okay,
boogeyman. Number one,
well
for NATO
we've
to
got plenty of people to be a boogeyman though. I mean, just hit
we,
China alone. China is very sufficient to be labeled as a boogeyman and has
No,
been
it's
done for a
not.
while.
No, it's not. We have to have two in this case. China's for the conservatives, Russia's for the liberals. We need two boogeymen, one for each party. We can
Mm-hmm.
coalesce when we're going to war, but for the most part, we need two boogeymen. Russia wanted to join NATO. We said no. There was no good reason, really. Ukraine cannot join NATO by the because there's constantly conflict there. They're not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be able to join NATO. They have to be like out of war for X amount of period of time and stuff. The Putin is saying, stop saying you're going to join NATO, stop trying to join NATO. America promised us that they can't join NATO, and we're like, nothing of the sort. I don't think we want Ukraine to join NATO. I don't think it behooves us for Ukraine to join NATO, but it behooves us for Russia to worry that Ukraine could join NATO. Behooves in the way that we're going about our business, not in the way that I think we should.
But just think about the fact that Ukraine alone, with all the things, why even do the Budapest Agreement and have them de-arm nuclearly if we could just bring them into the fold of NATO and then have access to all those nuclear armaments? I mean, that would make us a powerhouse. That would make NATO insane. But then we're like, we reject them. It just doesn't fit for me.
We're talking about Russia, like rejecting Russia.
Well, and also rejecting Ukraine.
If everybody joins NATO, who are we going to fight?
Well, the boogeyman, anyone from the south of China. It doesn't
then
matter.
It's all just terrorists, but like,
do you feel
okay, you're talking about one world. No, I do
okay.
not.
Okay, all right.
You're talking about, why don't we just make a one world government? Why don't we all just come together, get along, sing kumbaya, and then go after the boogeyman that is the terrorist, I guess. That's the end result. And the answer is it's really fucking complicated. I can think of 100 reasons why we want Ukraine to join NATO and 100 reasons why we wouldn't. And there's a bunch of people in the office right now that want Ukraine to join NATO and a bunch of people that wouldn't. So we're talking about what the United States as a whole, as it coalesces, wants. And that's just convoluted and complicated, but it's not as simple as, well, everybody would just join if you were right. No, there's just a billion different directions and routes and branches going every direction that you parse out and figure out. And the bottom line is, I take it back to game theory. What are we doing to try and earn our points? America has to grow at such a rapid rate in every way, and that includes the military. And at some point, you have to use those weapons, or you're not going to get more funding. At some point, you have to scare the population, or you're not going to get more money to build those bombs. So that's okay. Here's my main point that I've been wanting to make forever, and I think I can finally put it succinctly. The numbers are coming out with, and if you please take a note and come back on this. The numbers are out, and the COVID vaccines were a freaking sham. The numbers are out, and they just came out, and I was right. A lot of my people were right. Biden's poll numbers were absolutely in the shitter. I think they were like as low as Trump's or close to it, or even lower at one point. I don't remember, but they were really, really bad. The dollar is crashing. It is crashing, and it's taken every effort in so many types of like economic warfare things we've been doing all over the world to keep the dollar propped up as much as possible. And it's a bubble that's popping, can't do it anymore.
Okay.
All the other issues we've already talked about, what's going on with Russia and Ukraine historically and what we've been doing and stuff. There's so many reasons for us to go to war right now. Like I said, with World War II, like there were so many reasons, so many issues. It wasn't just Hitler. Right now, there's so many reasons for us to go to war. And it's really scary. And when there's all these reasons, and then you got these people yelling about the Ukrainian people, that's fucking horse shit. It's not about the Ukrainian people. If we go to war, it's because we chose to go to war. We wanted to go to war. We knew what to do to go to war. And if we don't go to war, it's because we decided not to. And it's got very little to do with what any other country does, because we are the fucking powerhouse.
Okay, so do you think that the Biden is just kind of like resisting going in, boots on the ground in Ukraine, simply for political measures, and then like it's just waiting time to see what kind of atrocities?
Yeah, I think right now, if we put boots on the ground, we would. American people don't want boots on the ground. That's the poll numbers. If American people did, I think we'd probably have them on the ground, but I don't know, because again, there's so many other complications to consider. And America could then say 80% says, go into Ukraine to help stop Russia, and then something else could happen that says, nope, we can't, even if we want to. So who knows? But right now, 80% of America wants a no-fly zone. Do you understand what that means, Sean? Because I keep hearing everybody say, no, that's a good idea. Let's do the no-fly zone. Why would you be against the no-fly zone? Do you know what a no-fly zone means?
That they can't fly in and out of there or over it? Is that
we get to fly in and out of there and over it? That we control the skies? That NATO is in charge of the skies? So what it means is if Russia chooses to continue to do what they're doing, and we say no fly zone, we start shooting their planes down. So unless Russia goes, oh, okay, there's a no fly zone, we're done. or just boots on the ground, no planes, or what? If that's what they do, cool. The no-fly zone was a good idea. I highly doubt it. What I think would happen is we're saying you can't fly here anymore, and they're gonna be like, no, we're gonna do whatever the fuck we want because we are at war with Ukraine, and you need to mind your own business. And now we've escalated another notch towards World War III. A no-fly zone means we attack their planes if they don't do what we say. It's not that everybody just quits flying over Ukraine. It is us taking control of the air.
To what extent? Just over Russia and Ukraine?
We shoot, just over Ukraine. It's saying we will shoot you down if anybody flies over Ukraine. This is a no-fly zone, as in only NATO jets are allowed. And people are thinking of this like nobody be flying over Ukraine. Not likely. What's likely is we're going to go to war. What's likely is we're going to have our jets intercept their jets.
Now,
it means NATO controls the air.
Do you think it would be just America solely, or do you think it would be like European powers?
It wouldn't even be America at all, I don't think. I think it would just be NATO, but NATO is backed by America. NATO represents America. And hopefully, like Germany and some other parts of Europe are saying they don't want any of this. So I hope if we did a no-fly zone, a lot of other NATO countries would say no. And then we'd have to send in our own jets, and I don't think we could.
I don't think Europe wants Russia to be in control of Ukraine. I really don't think that.
They don't want what we have done to have happened. They do want Russia to be able to have the second pipeline. They do want Russia to be able to work with Ukraine peacefully. They do not want us to be fucking with Ukraine's politics.
No, but this isn't the way to go about it. So
but I don't want to argue about what Putin should do. I want to argue about what we're doing to instigate all this. I don't see the point. I don't see the point in saying, yeah, but Putin's so bad. There's a ton of really bad.
It's not that. Like, I think he should have a no-fly zone because Russia's flying fucking bombers over goddamn Ukraine, and he's bombing the shit out of hospitals and shit.
We do this shit all the time, and the hospital has been evacuated. Right. We do this shit all the time.
But it's not right.
Another country, if China or Russia said, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to implement a no-fly zone over Iraq, so you guys are going to have to leave, we would have World War III. What you're saying is, I think this should happen. Well, this is just another step towards war with Russia. It is the NATO versus Russia, not Ukraine, funded by America versus Russia. Now it's NATO versus Russia. And then it's going to be America versus Russia. And then it's going to be America and Europe versus Russia. This is a huge step. We instigated this whole thing. And don't forget Biden's sons, is it his son or his nephew? But the fuck up that had the drug problem.
That's his son, Hunter. Yeah.
Hunter. Don't forget his Ukrainian dealings with the oil companies. Don't forget all of this ties together. It all comes together into this mess that we have created. And now we're angry at the honey badger for doing what the honey badger does. And then we're going to say, okay, now we're going to tell you can't do this and that. It's just escalating it. We need to stop. And I know it's not going to happen. We're not going to do the right thing. We never do. We never do the right thing. But what we need to do is stop giving Ukraine weapons, promise that Ukraine cannot join NATO, and just let the pipeline do what the pipeline needs to do so that Russia can grow its economy and move towards a diversity of energy uses and start putting, the deal, moving towards like electric powered cars and wind and solar and all that.
Incentivize them to go a different direction. Yeah. And we should also lead by example on that one. No, like, absolutely. I just think that there seems to be too much credit given to American sphere of influence when it comes to this matter, like in the Eastern Bloc, like that. It doesn't sit right with me on this one. It just seems like there's too much. It seems like there's been a lot of politics. There's been a lot of deals. There's been a lot of agreements and accords and all this kind of shit that have been violated. Both people have violated them. Russia and the U.S. both have. Hey, okay, we're going to de-arm. We're going to get rid of all our nukes within Ukraine. As long as you don't invade us, we'll offer up that buffer zone. And then they turn it right around 20 years later and they go ahead and violate it. And Russia's saying, well, you're
how did Russia violate, though?
Russia violated the Budapest Agreement by annexing Crimea. So they
in 2014, after we put in a puppet government into Ukraine. So Yeah, I guess we didn't violate an agreement. We didn't promise we wouldn't, like, coup a country on your border, but it's not fair to sit there and say Russia's violating the agreements when we set it up. Fucking set it up.
It just seems like all
That's
these
huge.
countries really, really, really want to come to the West and come into NATO, and they really want to get away from Russian sphere of
When we
influence. And
tell
I'm
them
just like,
to, I know that it does. It seems like that because you listen to bullshit media. It's not the way. A lot of them don't want to join NATO. NATO is not good for every country. It's good for some countries. It's bad for others. A lot of them, it
do you think that, okay,
and
do you think that if we said, okay, you know what, we made an agreement with Putin, and we said, okay, we're not going to put Ukraine into NATO, and we're going to give you your buffer zone, and we're going to disarm, and we're going to do that. Do you think that he would give Crimea back?
if I think if we then said and the Russians, if we could also strike some sort of an agreement where the Ukrainian government agrees to protect the Russian heritage, because Russians are very into heritage.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think so,
So are
but
Americans by that standard, by the way. But yeah,
certain of us, it depends on Middle America versus the coastal America. But yeah, um, I think that when a country's really poor, it's like all they have is their heritage in a lot of ways. I think,
mm-hmm.
but I think he might. But should we give back Texas to Mexico? I'm not really worried about whether or not he gives it back. Crimea. I think that from what I understand, overall, the people are happier being a part of Russia. Russia did not want Crimea. Crimea wanted Russia to. The
Mm-hmm.
Crimean Russian people wanted Russia to annex them way before he did, and he kept saying no. And that's in the history books. That's anybody can look this up. He was saying no to them, and I can't remember the other ones, but he was saying no. You're not part of Russia. We are not the Soviet Union anymore. It's not going to work that way. No, 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 no. And the fucking tables flipped as soon as we put in that government in Ukraine. And then he took Crimea. Should he give it back? I don't know. That's way too complicated for me to know. It could be disastrous for a country to flip flop back and forth like that. God knows it has been for Ukraine. And I don't think that's the point. Would Russia stop bombing Ukraine? Absolutely. And one of the things that Joe Rogan just said, because I think he's on the wrong side on this one, is he said that Russia's making ridiculous demands like that Ukraine demilitarizes. Well, I don't think that's a ridiculous demand under the situation. He's not saying absolutely no military, but he is saying I want a neutral government that is not stocking up on weapons, and that's fair. We've talked about giving Ukraine nukes. Even I've heard of senators talking about giving Ukraine nuclear powers.
Senators say
I
stupid shit, but I mean the older agreements
you
for
can
the
imagine what Putin hears,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
and so I don't know.
So okay,
Yeah, I don't.
all right. So
Yeah,
yeah, I just did a spot fact check on you on the Crimean, like the population wanting to do that, and pretty much yeah, it holds water with you. I'm gonna go ahead and just like look at this real quick and put
you
this up.
got that from Google. I had to search for Brave to get that info.
No,
I'm surprised Google's letting that
I
out.
am just going to go ahead and do this real quick just to kind of read it out so everyone can see what we're talking about here. Let me find this real quick. Okay, so the 2019 survey found that 82% of Crimea's population supported Crimea's ascension to Russia, as opposed to 86% in 2014. The survey also found that 58% of Crimean Tatars, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, now supported Crimea's ascension to Russia, as opposed to 39% in 2014. So that does make sense, and that does hold water. But what I'm kind of wondering, though, is that, like, let's say that Texas wanted to go ahead and join Mexico up. Should we just go ahead and let them because they wanted to? Should we let Mexico to annex them? And is that something that we should go ahead and let go of, considering like its impact on GDPs and the culture of the people that still want to be part of America? You know what I'm saying?
Three answers.
Okay.
Yes, we should, because I believe in like a totally and completely free society. And if a
Okay.
whole bunch of people want to succeed, then yeah, I think we should. B, it's not going to happen, so it doesn't matter. We would never do that. It wouldn't be in our
Mhm.
best interest as a country. And so obviously, even if I were like a politician, I wouldn't sign off on that because I'd lose too much political capital and be devastated. And C, most importantly, you got to put in the whole thing. We can't just say if Texas just wanted to. If Texas wanted to do that right after our government was infiltrated by China and
Mhm.
became way, 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 way more left to the point of communistic,
Mhm.
which in some ways we are already, but in the scary ways. And then that would make a lot more sense if we had a rapid change of government
Mhm.
in a way that scared the hell out of Texans, and we were like, "We're coming for your guns immediately," and yada yada. Then yeah, that would make a lot
Okay,
more
on a
sense. And then
civilian level, but I'm talking about like what should a nation do? You know what I mean? Should a nation just like, yeah, go ahead, go, see ya, bye, peace? Is it? Do you think that's
ideally,
what nation?
sure.
Okay, but
Ideally, yes. I mean,
ideally,
we're
but I
talking
mean,
about like a utopian society.
mhm.
Would we? No. And but that doesn't mean I wouldn't be on Texans' side and
Mhm.
understand why they want to do it. And if they did it anyways, or if Mexico just said we're taking it,
Mhm.
I wouldn't think the United States is 100% in the right, but I wouldn't think Mexico's in the right either. Now, what about Native Americans, who, by the way, still get shit on unbelievably in every way possible, and we kind of ignore that in the media? What we do to Native Americans still to this day is atrocious and then very much ignored. What if they wanted some of their own land back from like the agreements they had 30 years ago that they keep losing their land,
Mhm.
the tribes? And what if they said, okay, we're going to start taking this back? Would I support them doing that? No, because the only way you're going to take something back is by force, and I don't support force. So
Mhm.
it's complicated and convoluted, and I'm glad I'm not a political decision maker for these kind of things.
Wait, just for clarification, do you support force as a defensive measure, or do you just like an aggressive?
Defense, yes, not okay.
Mhm.
First of all, this is illegal. What's it called? A preemptive war is illegal, and it's
Mhm.
against the Geneva Conventions. By the way, a lot of what Ukrainian government's doing right now is against the Geneva Conventions too. But so I don't believe that I should. I heard my neighbor's going to come for me. I should not go to him and kill him first.
Mhm.
I mean, in the real world, in a dystopian future, I might have to do something like that. But in the highest, most righteous,
Okay.
moral high ground, I should not like preemptively kill somebody.
Yeah.
I should only stand my ground and protect my domain. So,
Okay.
does that answer your question?
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay.
but I don't know if that answers the question, but I see what your point is. Shit, if I could remember my actual question, that's on me. Um, it seems to me with the analogy of the U.S. and Mexico, for
Well, let me
example.
tell we were talking about the Native Americans and whether or not they were to take back their land by force. And I'm like, I don't
Mhm.
support doing that kind of thing by force. Taking back something by force is a bit different than like protecting what you have now by force.
Oh, I see. Okay, so like not as a preemptive measure, like Native Americans saying we want to go and take this land back by force as a
I
preemptive
would not
measure.
support
Okay.
that, but I
Okay.
would totally get where they're coming from and say we should just give it back to them, even though I know we wouldn't. You know what
Hmm.
I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Which is
And
just
and that
awful.
goes. I don't support what Russia's doing. I don't like it at all. I don't. They're dropping bombs. They're killing innocent people. Not as
Yeah.
bad as the media says, but you can't drop bombs strategically and not kill a bunch of people that
I
don't
think that
deserve to die. I
I think the
hate it.
media has lost control of what's going on over there, and thanks to folks like
I
Elon
think the
Musk and
media is
stuff.
feeding us bullshit, and I think their media is feeding them bullshit.
Hmm.
And everybody's getting censored like crazy. RT, which had some of the best media in the United States, just got shut down and/or pulled out, and a bunch of dudes that
Wait,
I
did you just
listen
say
to.
RT as the
Yeah,
best news source? Russia Today is the best news
I
source.
RT had some of the best news sources. RT had Chris Hedges.
Caitlin Moffat.
He yeah. What I don't agree with a lot of his stuff, but what's wrong with him?
That recent thing he did was the most like Russian shill bullshit like I think I've seen from any media source ever. That
He
is,
loves Russia, but he brings up a lot of good points. And I find that when I dig into his evidence, it's slanted way different than he calls it, but it's still relevant. He just loves Mother Russia. And Jackson Hinkle loves China,
I just
and
want you
I don't
to
like
really
any of.
acknowledge what you're saying. A news channel, RT, being Russia Today, it's completely done by like Americans, or at least folks that are speaking English with an American accent, trying to talk about and discuss Russia's point of view on an American market. Which, like, how could you not say any of that is nothing but fucking propaganda? It seems like that's completely antithetical to like your entire position on most things when it comes to media sources, and that's clearly an example of like propaganda at work right there. I don't think we have an American station within Russia called AT, America Today, where we're putting our side of things for the Russian people to enjoy. I'm not sure something like that exists, but yet it exists here. So that I'm kind of confused. Maybe speak to that a bit.
RT had some of the best news. They
Mm-hmm.
also had some of the worst. They're a huge network, very large. They did not tell Chris Hedges what to say. They did not tell what's the ex wrestler, ex governor, thought about running for president,
The
ex Navy SEAL.
Take with the dude in Minnesota. God, what is his name? Jesse
Yeah,
Ventura, whatever.
Jesse Ventura. Thank you.
Mm.
They did not tell him what to say on his show. These people were not pro Russia.
That's
Caleb Maupin is pro.
well, I'm sorry. Everything you just said is completely unsubstantiated, though. Like, how do you know they didn't tell him to do that just because he said no? I mean, this is a
Because
propaganda
I know
machine.
guys, like I know some of them personally, but like I am familiar with the way it worked. They let them do their own show.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. This sucks. This is terrible. But the Russian media was better than the American media by far, in my opinion, even though they had a lot of bullshit on them. I mean, they had a lot of people I don't agree with. But the guys that I watched on that show, which I could probably name about 7 of them, they had very good coverage on what's really going on and were anti-war no matter what, and did talk disparagingly about Russia whenever they felt it merited. Caleb Maupin is not one of my people. I do appreciate some of his information, but he's too pro-Russia for me. Just like Jackson is too pro-China for me. But they are both people that I do get some information from, and I do like Jackson, and I don't much care for Caleb. But Chris Hedges is not at all pro-Russia. He's just, these people did not have a platform big enough to get their information out without RT. And everybody else that you go to that's a big media platform in the United States is so pro-war that every time we're amping up to go to war, they shut down people like Chris Hedges, like Glenn Greenwald. People that do the best news don't get to do it in these times. And they had Russia Today, the network, to where from what I trust that I know, they were not censored. And these guys, I think they'd tell me if they were, and they were doing the news in ways that you could tell they weren't being censored. You can say that the vaccine saves everybody's life, and you'll never get COVID if you get vaccinated.
Well, wait,
ever.
let's not
Hold
go
on,
down there.
it's tied to the. Hold on.
Okay,
It's
okay.
tied to the. You can say that, and that's total radical misinformation. But you can say that. What you can't say is the vaccine doesn't work. Whether that's misinformation or not, you can't go the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
So your misinformation is okay if it supports the media narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we at least know that about COVID. We should know that about war. It's the same thing. Your misinformation, if it supports the narrative of America hegemonity or whatever that word was,
Hegemony.
and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and if you go the other way, you will eventually, you're asking to be censored. And so I don't like that Russia Today was the best network for me to get my news. I hate
Mm-hmm.
that. But it was because they were allowed to say what they wanted
But
to
it sounds
say.
to me a testament to free speech in America to allow a Russian propaganda machine to go ahead and to operate and to signal to whoever is willing to listen without ever being shut down. I seriously doubt the same
There
concession
are
would be.
no testaments to be given for free speech in America right now. All of the dissenting voices are being crushed in every direction.
RT clearly is not being crushed, and it is a
They're
Russian
gone.
run.
They're gone. They're out of the U.S. They fired everybody who did the U.S. shows. They're gone. They disappeared from the U.S. And I get it. I understand you don't want a Russian network here right now. I get it. But they don't have other alternatives. Twitter is blocking half these people and putting saying that the other half are like paid by Russians. Caleb Maupin is not paid by Russians. His Twitter account, whether he's pro-Russia or not, should not say that he's paid by Russians, and to be careful because he's, a Russian apologist. They're censoring in every way they can get away with more and more and more.
Okay, I'm going to bring this up real quick so our folks can see. Let's see. All right. So, let's see. The Russian branch of the American branch of the Russian state-funded media network, Russia Today, is shutting down and laying off most of its staff, CNN reports. Should we believe CNN? I don't know. I think we should believe them on this one. According to a memo, RT America will be, quote, ceasing production, end quote, due to, quote, unforeseen business interruption events, end quote. Unfortunately, we anticipate this layoff will be permanent, meaning that this will result in the permanent separation from employment of most of TNR employees in all locations, the memo said via CNN. Per CNN, Misha Solodovinikov, the general manager of TNR Productions, the production company behind RT, delivered the news in person to hosts, etc., etc. She said staff will be provided 2 months of paid severance. What else are we saying? This news follows DirecTV's announcement that it will drop RT America in light of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Funded by the Russian government, RT America launched in 2010 and has hosted shows featuring American entertainment figures, including Larry King and Dennis Miller. Earlier this week, the European Union announced it would ban Russia's state media with Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, basically various social media sources. But Radio Sputnik, another state-funded Russian outlet, continues to operate its AM radio station in Washington, D.C. So I don't know. Do you think that they've been shut down, or do you think they just went ahead and
what I mean specifically, if I misspoke, I apologize. What I mean is that the people that I want to listen to keep getting shut down, and a lot of them just got shut down big time. And I don't know if they decided to. I knew they got kicked off of Spotify and another major platform. That RT was not allowed to be on 2 major platforms, and I think YouTube was talking about doing the same thing. They might have been preemptive. They might have gotten a call from the State Department saying, pull out now or we're shutting you down. That you get letters and you get phone calls from the State Department that can really be scary when you're a large business owner. Who knows what was said? It might have been Russia just saying, get the fuck out of there. I don't know. But my main point is, it's not like the government it's not like Biden is saying, listen, that go to jail.
You need to repeat that. You need to repeat that. You cut up. It's not like Biden is saying anybody who says pro-Russia talking points is going to go to jail. We can't get away with that kind of sin. But the powers that be are eliminating all of the voices of opposition that they can. And it's accelerated in times of accelerated with COVID. It's accelerated more now. And more and more and more, I have to look far and wide to get the voices I want to listen to. And on another note, I think it's probably a good thing to go back to a decentralized world and stop getting our information from Facebook and Twitter and whatever. But the reality of this. And Grim, just real quick, Grim, you need to stop looking at TikToks and quit sending me TikToks. This is unacceptable media format. I'm just sorry. I had to call him out real quick. Anyway, you were saying.
TikTok's got the best news now that RT's gone. I don't know what you're talking about.
Apparently, yeah. I need my short attention span theater news outlets to provide information for me and real grainy quality video and with clear, clearly unaltered video and media sources. But anyway, go ahead. Saying, I just had to call him out. It's because it's fun, and he'll give me a bunch of shit tomorrow. So yay!
I do about 10 TikTok videos every night before I go to bed, and it's almost exclusively comedians.
Right.
That's how I've curated it. It's just 9 out of 10 of them are just comedians.
I haven't got onto that thing yet, but I can understand the appeal because I hate to.
It's really addictive. It is like I've got a rule of 10 because it is. It's so simple and so stupid and so fucking addictive.
Yeah, I've been into the YouTube shorts and I got to stop that. I've fallen down a couple of holes before. It's the same kind of premise, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like what gets you hooked as fast and as simple as possible. Cut
Oh
out
yeah.
everything else.
Yeah, it's like dopamine hits. It's just like, okay, just
Yeah.
rapid fire. Like, oh, I feel good. This is fun. This is entertaining. I'm bored. Next, next. Okay, this is fun. Next, next. Oh, this is fun. Yeah, it's pretty dumb. Um, yeah, dude. Like the this shit's just nasty business all the way around. Like, I understand. Like, I recognize America's involvement, or at least try to recognize some of their involvement. I don't know. I'm not cued into every single thing like nasty business that America does. I know that they do gross, egregious shit and have been doing this for at least the past 150 years. Like, I get that.
Like amazingly gross. Like dive in. It's
Right.
unbelievable. Like,
But I
okay.
think, but the
And
thing
you
is,
understand that we're still doing that stuff now. You just don't know the effect it really has in the overall scheme, right?
yeah, but at the same time, I also realized that the good shit kind of pretty much goes around invisible and doesn't make it to our radar, doesn't make it to our ears or our eyes, and so we just kind of think like, so what we hear about's all the bad shit, which is I think a byproduct or an artifact of how media operates. You know, you don't get a lot of the fluff pieces of, well, America did some good, but yeah, I think that they do some good. I think they can be a force for good in some instances. Rarely, but they can. Okay. And don't ask me to give me one because I can't cite one right now because I'm all into
I don't
this at
think
the
a
moment.
failing empire ever does any good. I think we did some good along the way, along the rubble and destruction we created. We did some good as we were, reaching the top. But I don't think a failing empire ever does any. It's all completely and totally whatever benefits us because we don't have the resources to do anything else. We'll put a spin on it. But we just freed 750 children from the such and such through the such and such. But we did it because it was our best interest, period, point blank. And we probably caused a lot of damage to do whatever we did.
Wow.
And that's the difference between an empire on the rise and a declining empire. And it's going to get uglier and uglier and uglier. And the propaganda is going to get better and better and better. And it's just,
But you have to
we
admit, we're
always
not the
do.
only propaganda machine and game out there, though. You know, we're not the only
No, I
ones
think we're
doing
the
it.
best at it. I
I
think
think
we're the
Russia's
best at
pretty
it.
damn good at it.
The Russian farm was not even a Russian state. I don't think Russia's very good at it. I think that was bullshit. That was our own propaganda again. I don't think anybody's good at it like us. Maybe Britain, but I don't know. I'm gonna be most suspect against us because I'm living here. If I lived in Russia, I'd probably, you know how I am. I mean, I would be talking nonstop about how terrible Russia was if I lived there.
So it's a kind of a grass is
I'm
greener on the other side, but in your instance, it's grass is
not even.
browner on the other side.
Maybe it's even a know your place thing, and my place is
Mhm.
not to talk about other countries when I'm an American. Maybe
Yeah,
that's it. Maybe it's just what's relevant to me and the way I wish other people would be
yeah.
doing it. Okay, I think if America didn't have any influence at all, if we were not the world's police, if we were not in control of everything,
Like a total
our,
isolationist country kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. I don't even know what you're going to say. Do you
Mm-hmm.
think the world's better off or worse off? Last 50 years, we were in isolation. We were
Oh, last 50
Switzerland the way they
years?
used to
Oh,
be.
yeah, last 50
Yeah,
years. Yeah.
okay. So then I think you can agree
Overall, like
that
a
if
net thing. Yeah, overall.
okay, then I think you can agree that if we suddenly right now pulled out and stop doing all the fuckery that we're doing, if that doesn't create a better place eventually, then that's on us for having done what we did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you're saying basically is we can't stop now in a way.
Well,
And I'm saying,
I think a byproduct of like trying to expand our markets and the way we do. Now, I'm no proponent of capitalism. I don't like it. I want it gone. But I think there is a byproduct to it as far as like overall quality of life that is enjoyed by people that were within our markets. I mean, I think Europe has seen some boons from our markets. I think they've seen like a higher quality of
at
life
the
with those
expense
standards.
of others. Yes,
Totally.
at
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
expense of
No,
others.
agreed. And I
So
think like the
every bit of good we've done, I think, has been the expense of others because we are on a limited resource planet where
well,
if everybody has $100 and $100 enough,
I just don't think that the globe can really operate like independently or isolationist anymore. I think that if we were to say like just pull out of markets, go completely isolation, take an isolationist approach to things and completely pull out, be 100% independent and neutral, and not do anything in there, I think there would be like cascading consequences across the globe for that that not necessarily are positive things. Now that could be
Sure.
in complete relation to like what like, well, no, we don't get as much cell phones, or we don't give Apple to the world, or whatever, and they got to do their own thing, and that just sounds like classist bullshit. Like I understand that, but I mean, I don't think that like overall it's just like, oh yeah, if America pulled out, everything would be better, and everyone would be more happy for it and better off for it. I think some people would say, yeah, well, hell yeah, let's get them out of there, and fuck America, fuck their imperialism. Yeah, I get that, but I think at the same time there is some like maybe unspoken or unseen benefits to just the overall quality of life that people enjoy because of our involvement in other countries and the way that these
Some
countries
people,
work.
yes. And then other people have been stuck in poverty, and every time they try to come out, we
Yeah.
assassinate their rule, their leader, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So there's gonna for
Or
every
dispose
person you
them.
can find that, yeah.
Yeah.
So every person you can find that one way or the other. So every person you can find that's happy with America. I don't know if you can find half a person or two people that's unhappy with what we've done,
Mm-hmm.
legitimately or not. I don't know that we should just become an isolationist. I'm just raising the point. You can agree that we've been fucking up things really badly forever, and there's this. I feel like everybody I talk to agrees. Holy shit, we do all this heinous shit. Holy shit, all of the
Mm-hmm.
last wars we were in since World War II, we shouldn't have been in.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit, there was a lot more to World War II than I knew. Everybody can agree on that. Everybody can agree that we have been provoking Russia. And yet, when all of the signs point to Biden needs a war, whether he wants it or not, his administration wants it. The warmongers that he surrounded himself with, most of them were in Trump's cabinet, and some of them are even worse than Trump had. And he doesn't have some of the good ones that Trump had.
Mm-hmm.
He's got more of a war, group of people surrounding him than Trump actually did, and that we can verify with fact checks if you want. But so I
Oh
see
yeah,
all of
with
these
John
signs.
Bolton, which was like one of the biggest war hawks there's ever been. He got rid of him though eventually because Bolton like rejected Trump's premises on things, but he was part of the cabinet for a big. And that guy is like a notorious war hawk. He had Steve Bannon, another notorious war hawk. I mean, he's had some pretty big war hawky figures and
Yes, and
of note.
Biden does too. But he had McDonough, if I got the last name right. That was a guy who talked him out of wars, and he had some dissenting
Mm-hmm.
voices with war. I don't think Biden does. Yeah, Biden doesn't have the biggest war hawk, but he's got like 9 of the second biggest ones. There, just look at the record; it's bad. But all signs, everything. Like we look back on this 100 years
See,
from now, and we're looking back on World War III, and we're like, of course, America started a war.
mm-hmm.
It's so obvious, but it's so cloudy right now. It's so foggy for everybody else. Yeah, we fuck up everything in the past. We always fuck up everything. But the Ukrainian people, it doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, like to me, when you say all signs, like unlike many other presidents, now don't misunderstand me or misrepresent me by saying like I'm pro Biden. I'm not. Um, I think he's done some foolish things already, but it just seems to me like Biden seems intent at going down in the. Are you out of here? Can you even hear me?
No, keep going. I'm just grabbing something. Sorry.
It seems to
That's
me
it.
that
I'm done. I don't want
I
to
was
hear
like,
about Biden.
this kid just totally walked off on me. Okay, no, but I think it the signs that I'm seeing is more. I shit. Let's see how to phrase this. Seemed to me that Biden wants to go down as like in his 4 years, because I don't think he's going to run again. I think he wants to go down into his 4 years as being the president that offered peace and a little reprieve from the constant war and bullshit.
Maybe you're right, but why? Why do you think that? What evidence do we have? Because I think if he wants to go to war, he is going to sound like the most peaceful. I don't mean to go to war. Just like the nastiest dictator in some North African country that's like raping and pillaging every village he can. He'll swear to God, I hate war. I don't want to go to war, but I have to if he's got political clout to gain. So
Well,
Biden's going to
nuclear
put
arms.
this, if he
Well, nuclear armaments aside, I think this would have been a wonderful excuse to go boots on the ground and be like, put us into the Ukraine and fight off like a Russian aggression. I think that would have been, if he is a war hawk, I think he would have figured out a way to justify that. I mean, right now we could just like supply them with like tech and things, but some people are even saying like, even if we did give them a lot of tech, it's probably not realistic to expect that the bulk of like Ukrainian militia would even be able to utilize that tech, you know? So
The propaganda says Ukraine's winning. They're beating back Russia. I call horseshit on that. Ukrainian is getting decimated. We gave them a bunch of weapons and a bunch of pep talks just to like sit there and point and laugh and have them be our puppets. We knew. I'll bet you there's these soldiers going, no, we got your back, bro. Like almost literally to these freaking Nazis and all the others that aren't Nazis, and just to leave them hanging. And I don't know that, but I know Biden doesn't want to protect Ukraine unless he's protecting his son's interest or some shit. But let's rephrase it this way. If you knew this was true, Russia is telling the truth, and they say, give me Ukraine. I own Ukraine. Ukraine is now part of Russia. Mother Russia is back.
He said that many times, by the way, or something to that
No,
effect.
He never did. But if he did,
I think honestly, and based upon what Putin has said many, many times over the course of the years and stuff like that, that he wants to see the Soviet Union, or at least the territories of the Soviet Union, reestablished under the folds of Russia. He's wanted that.
I'm going to get good at fact checking and be able to like put my own stuff on here or give you the links fast enough. And we need to address that next time, because as I said, when I went through the speeches, because you brought that up to me and I hadn't heard that.
Are you talking about the most recent speech that he gave, like right before he invaded that thing? I'm just talking about history.
No. Over the last like 15 years.
Okay, let's.
Not ancient history, but I did not hear that from. And I heard that I saw the media saying that he's saying this and that, but then when I transcribe the speeches, that's not what I'm getting. And I disagree with America's take. But let's say he says, give me Ukraine or I launch the nuke. Okay. Ukraine is mine or I launch the nuke.
Okay, here's your options here. I've got U.S. News, I've got CBS News, BBC, Express.co.uk, I've got Inquirer, The Guardian, foreignpolicy.com. Which one of these would you like? And I'll bring this up.
None of them, but I'll take any of them. They're all terrible, but I'll take any of them because if they've got the facts, then I can read through their bullshit.
Okay, let's go ahead. Let's
do BBC.
Okay, BBC. This is from March 28th, 2014. We're going to go ahead and bring this up real quick. Okay, let's take this one, and we'll put it up here. I do not want to register. Leave me alone. Okay. This is from, again, this is from March 28th, 2014. The world was stunned when Russia invaded Crimea, but should have been. Author and journalist Oliver Bullis says President Vladimir Putin never kept his secret intention to restore Russian power. What's less clear, he says, is how long the country's rise can continue. Let's see. Let's see if I can find something in here. I think I need to zoom this up a bit. Okay, so people can read. Let's see. I'm trying to Okay, born in Leningrad in 1952, Putin came to the age of the Soviet Union's golden years, the period before, the period after USSR's astonishing triumph in World War II. Sputnik, the hydrogen bomb, Lakia the dog, and Yuri Gagarin all bore witness to Soviet ingenuity. The crushing of Hungary in 1956, the Czechoslovakia in 1968 bore witness to the Soviet resolve. Soviet citizens were enjoying a time of peace and prosperity. Life was stable. People got paid. The world respected them. Everyone knew their place. When Putin spoke to Duma, his homeland was different, less respected place. He spoke the language of a man who yearned for the lost certainties, who longed for a time when Moscow was reckoned with. He did not say it explicitly, but he said clearly stung by Russia's failure to stop NATO driving the forces of its ally Serbia out of Kosovo just months previously. Russia has been a great power for centuries and remains so. It has always had and still has legitimate zones of interest. This is the shit I'm talking about. This is just one instance of it. We should not drop our guard in this respect, neither should we allow our opinion to be ignored, he said. His domestic policy was to restore stability, to end what he called the revolutions that had brought Russia low. His foreign policy was to regain Russia's place in world affairs. These two core aims have driven everything he has done since. If only people had been listening, none of the actions would have come to a surprise to them. Since then, he has seized every opportunity history has offered him, from the attacks of September 11th to the Ukrainian Revolution in 2013. In his bid to secure his aims, he has been tactically astute and ruthlessly opportunistic. At home and abroad, he wants Russia to regain the prestige it held when he was growing up. And that is a sentiment that is like shared with a good many people. You know.
You just proved my point, though.
Okay.
There is no proof, not even evidence
Hmm.
that he said any. They put words in his mouth when they didn't quote him except for like 2 words at a time at the most, maybe twice. But I
Hmm.
can't see the quote, so I don't know if they were literally quoting. They didn't say he said this. They didn't even say he said this, and what he really
Hmm.
means is this. No, they talked about what he was talking about and what he really meant.
A lot
Now,
of
when
this is a politician. They have to be inferred.
this
What
is
politician?
propaganda.
But what politician shows their
This is
hand?
exactly what propaganda looks like. They're telling you what to believe
Hmm.
without telling you what he said. Yes, I know that all politicians lie. So does the media.
Well, not
And
necessarily
you're
that they lie, but they don't necessarily like explicitly show their hand. You know what I'm
but
saying?
you gotta look at what he said in full context, and you gotta see both sides if you don't understand what it means, and then you gotta decide if you trust him with what he's saying. And
Hmm.
you gotta do that on a case by case basis, even with the people you don't like Trump. I sit there and believe these things that the mainstream left media said about Trump for a couple of years, and then I realized, holy shit, he didn't say that. He didn't mean that. Yeah, he says a lot of dumb shit, but they exaggerate it, they blow it out of context, and they say he said stuff that he didn't say all the time. And with every single thing, uh, that if you're going to say this is something I need to know, you got to look at both sides. And you can pull all the media you want, like you just did, and find the same shit where these people are interpreting what they believe Putin really meant. But there was nothing in there about what he actually said. And I went through 3 different transcripts of one of his speeches and one transcript on 2 other speeches regarding Damas, if I'm saying that right, and Crimea and Ukraine as a whole, and the fall of the Soviet Empire. And I think that you can draw your own inferences based on what tribe you're in and what you already believe. But the bottom line is these people are doing just that. They're drawing their own inferences. And then you can look at other media from the East and see a totally different take on it. And then you can look at the facts and make up your own mind. And that's not what you're doing. You're buying the Western narrative on this without actually what he had to say.
I don't think it's a buying of the Western narrative that Putin wants to regain the Soviet territories, the Soviet Empire, like the Soviet whatever, the empire, if you want, for lack of a better word. When you have instances of him like actively doing it, whether it's his invasion of
How do you
Georgia
have
or is it
instances of him act? But
inv-
then
invading
so
Georgia,
like
annexing Crimea. I mean, he's flat out trying to reacquire. Now he's in Ukraine. That's 3 instances of him going
that
into.
we instigated the Georgia issue, we instigated the Crimea issue, we instigated the Damas issue in Ukraine.
But we did.
So
This is frustrating because, like, what you're saying is like it's our fault that he went in there to reclaim these
we
territories from
don't
the
want
Soviet bloc.
Mexico. We don't want to take over Mexico. But if China did to Mexico that scenario I played out earlier, if China did that to Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
we would take over Mexico. We would absolutely own that government. And we would that's just what we do. There's no doubt that if Russia or China did to Mexico what we did to the Ukraine,
Mm-hmm.
we would take over Mexico and it would be ours.
Okay,
That
so
doesn't mean we want Mexico.
after the fall of the Soviet Empire, or the Soviet Union, okay, all of these countries go back to sovereign nations, right? And they basically say like, we're
Mm-hmm.
no longer a part of Russia. We are our own sovereign nation now,
And
right?
some of them flourished and most of them were crushed economically.
Right.
Yes.
And then where did most of them run to after being liberated from Soviet Union control? They ran to the West.
I know 4 of them wanted to join NATO that I've looked into, and
Uh-huh.
3 of them wanted Russia to take them back. And Putin, in the speeches I heard, said, "No, I'm sorry. Any statesman longs for the days of the Soviet Union, but knows that it's impossible and never going to happen."
Mm-hmm.
He gave a speech that was very political in that he's saying, "I get why you want us to be the Soviet Union again, but I hope you get why it cannot happen." And who's to say what he really wants or not? But he wasn't saying that he's never given a speech that I can find when I actually get to his words that indicates at all to me that he's even insinuating that he wanted to take back these countries. And you can argue, well, he's not going to say it, but they're saying he's saying it, and he's not saying it.
Yeah, he is.
You're guessing. He's Well, you just read me a whole article. He said nothing. They got nothing that he said in that article. Nothing. Find me him telling you that he wants to take over, or even insinuating, or but without just a 5-word quote. Like, you got to put it in context. I don't think you'll find it, and this would be challenging. It took me a long time to search for this stuff, and I had to use the Brave search engine because I couldn't get it through Google, and now DuckDuckGo is censoring Russian stuff.
I was like, the Brave one? What is he talking about?
Brave is a search engine, yeah, that's uncensored. DuckDuckGo just started censoring everything pro-Russian. But like, when I got to what he actually said, you can take it any way you want because he's a politician, and we're taking it the way we. And you're taking it the way you.
We don't have to do it about what he says. We could just see what he's doing. He's invading,
and what he's doing.
He's invading foreign territories of the Soviet Union and trying his best to
reclaim them.
We
would do the same thing if it was Mexico, and 90% of us would feel righteous about it at least. Yeah,
but I mean,
that doesn't mean we want to take over Mexico.
The point isn't whether or not it's wrong. It's just saying, like, okay, so the claim is that he wants to. The claim is that Putin wants to reclaim territories of the Soviet Union, and the evidence of him wanting to do that is him invading former territories of the Soviet Union. So it backs up.
I can't believe we're stuck in this loop. That is so simplistic.
But it parses, it maps onto reality of what's going on over the past 20, 30 years. I mean, that's exactly what's taking place now. And now we're seeing another example of it within the Ukraine. I even just did it then, the Ukraine, as though it's a territory of Russia. Ukraine, you know? This is why it doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, you keep bringing up like the badger analogy. We're poking him and poking him and poking him. And it just seems like, okay, your complaint is that America is using carrots onto sticks, and my complaint is that Russia's just using sticks. You know, and that's where I'm like, I'm kind of confused of where you're coming from. Like, yeah, okay, we might be.
Russia has not been just using sticks. Russia has asked to join NATO. Russia has asked Ukraine to be neutral. They've never, ever. Putin has never asked for Ukraine to have a pro-Russian government. He has only wanted a neutral government to be able to transact commerce through there and to have a buffer with NATO. And that Russia has a history of being taken over, infiltrated, and geologically speaking, it makes sense for them to have that buffer. And you keep going back to those 2 points, and I keep going back to, but if this was happening in Mexico, we would take over Mexico. That doesn't mean we want to take over Mexico. So I don't have any evidence that he wants to take over Ukraine or that he wanted to own Crimea. I have evidence that he felt forced to do so. I wouldn't have done it. But again, if I ruled Russia, I could see it not going so well for a multitude of reasons. I don't know how you morally run this day and age, and I'm not excusing him or any of the other leaders. I'm just saying, if this was happening to us, we'd be doing a lot more, a lot faster, and a lot harder than what Russia's done. Not because Russia's more benevolent than us, but because we have the power to get away with a lot. And we do this shit all over the world, as you know, all the time. And to sit there and blame other countries, I'm not blaming any other countries. If we're involved, I'm blaming us because I know what we're doing. And to point the finger at Russia and to say we need to do this to Russia, we're too complacent. We're too dirty. We shouldn't have anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we probably shouldn't have anything to do with it. But now we've got an oligarchy. We've got an autocratic leader, and he is invading a sovereign nation. And
I thought you were talking about us at first. Okay.
No, but no, I'm saying, and so now we're witnessing this happening. And what do? Do we just stand by and just allow it?
We say.
Ooh, that sounds nasty. I want to rephrase that. Allow it, as though like there are children. I don't like that. I don't like talking about it like that. What I'm just saying is, do we stand by and watch that aggression go unchecked? Like
we do with so many other countries?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 2 answers. First answer, ideally what we do is we say Ukraine cannot join NATO. Ukraine, we're sorry we gave you all those weapons. We're going to stop doing that. Russia, And Ukraine, please have peace talks. Biden told Ukraine they cannot talk peace with Russia. They cannot come to any kind of peace agreement with Russia before Russia invaded, by the way. And that can be fact checked. That's what we do. We let Russia and Ukraine talk. We
you want
let
to
them
fact check?
work it out.
I got to fact check that real quick. Biden tells Ukraine to not negotiate.
Yeah.
Because that sounds wonky. I haven't heard that one. Well, shit. Biden administration offering to negotiate with Russia over peace talk ends between Russia and Ukraine. That's February 28th. Let's see. This is NBC. I got an Axios one, third round of Ukraine peace talks with no major. Here, let me go ahead so the world can see what I'm looking for. Peace talks ended between Russia and Ukraine. Yesterday, Ukraine Biden administration offers humanitarian support. Third round of Ukraine peace talks end with no major. Biden's dilemma: how to give Putin an off ramp. That might be an interesting one. This is opinion. I'm not seeing anything about this. Okay, let's try this one. This is from, I have no idea who this is. Hertz.com, whatever. This is an analysis by Elon Pincus. This says the headline is Putin's real negotiations will only be with Biden, not Ukraine. Another time. Despite Ukraine war, superpowers talk to superpowers, not regional rivals. Despite now Flotty Bennett's good intentions, Putin wants to talk to Biden, not Zelensky. And for that, he doesn't need Israel's help. I don't understand what the hell this is about. All right, fuck this. This is going down a rabbit hole that I'm not interested in having. Yeah, I was with the I don't know if it's the latest State of the Union, but one of the more recent ones that Biden gave. I was kind of curious about, like, when I think we even covered that a little bit, where we're talking about the sanctions, what he was talking about, they would be harder than SWIFT, et cetera, et cetera. And that one news reporter was talking about, well, what's China's involvement in it? I am very, very curious about why that has been silent and not talked about.
Oh yeah, that's very interesting. And China is behind Russia and quite sure. China needs Russia 100%. They need their fertilizer. They need the food they grow. China is Russia wouldn't have done what they're doing to Ukraine without China's at least tepid approval. I'm quite sure of that, and that's fascinating. It's fascinating. The left is so in bed with China, and it's so complicated and so interesting.
Tankies are in bed with China. Damn it, not left.
The Hollywood and much of the left media is more pro-China. So like Tucker Carlson will be like, we can't go to war with Russia. China's who we should be worried about. And I feel like that is flipped on the left. And I'm generalizing, and I'm talking about the mainstream media, not real people. But for the most part, Russia's our boogeyman and the left's boogeyman. I still talk like I'm on the left. I don't know what I'm on. But in China's mostly the right's boogeyman, I think, more or less. But if we're talking about going to war, the powers that be coalesce, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you still had more to your point. Yeah, I'm really curious how that's going to play out. Hey,
World War III is how it's going to play out.
Do you want to?
Yes, I do.
Bring in Grim here. Let me get his ass to hop on here.